The Raiders made a big move in their secondary today. Cornerback Jack Jones has officially been released from the roster. It seems like the Raiders were shopping him around, hoping to find a trade partner. But after some time, they couldn't get a deal done and ultimately decided to part ways. This decision frees up around $3.4 million in cap space for the Raiders, which could be crucial as they make their moves in the coming months. Now, this release isn't too surprising. From the moment Jack Jones was signed, I had a feeling he was walking a fine line, especially since he was brought in under former defensive coordinator Antonio Pierce. With a new regime now in place with Pete Carroll and John Spytek, the writing might have been on the wall for Jones. While Jones definitely has some solid traits, he's aggressive, can make big interceptions, and has the ability to jump routes and score pick sixes. His weaknesses were glaring last season. As a primary starter, he struggled with double moves and gave up far too many big plays. And let's be real, his tackling wasn't the best either, especially when it came to being physical in the run game. That's a tough pill to swallow in a defense that demands toughness. Looking at the bigger picture, this move aligns with the new direction the defense is heading. Under Pete Carroll and Patrick Graham, the Raiders are focusing on versatility and athleticism in their players. It's clear that the bar is set higher for the players they want to keep on this roster moving forward. But here's the thing. What the Raiders are really after now are players who can hit hard and make an impact on every play. And unfortunately, Jack Jones just didn't quite fit that mold. With that said, releasing him frees up some much-needed cap space, and it opens up new possibilities. This move could also be a sign of what's coming next, especially when it comes to the NFL draft. Looking ahead, I can't help but think that cornerback has to be a priority, whether it's in the first or second round. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm excited about what Jacorian Bennett brings to the table. He's shown he has potential, but I'm not sure he's quite the shutdown cornerback we need just yet. That being said, he's definitely a solid starting outside corner. The cornerback room still has a lot of room to grow. We've got some younger guys like Damian Richardson who, let's be honest, didn't look great last season. But that's not the end of his story. I'm hoping year 2 is when we start to see him develop. After all, we were having similar concerns about Jacorian Bennett this time last year. He struggled, gave up big plays, and didn't look like a top-tier guy, but then look at the leap he made in his second year, fingers crossed. Richardson can follow that same path. Let's not forget about MJ Dionshire, another young late-round pick who could surprise us. And yes, we lost Nate Hobbs earlier in the offseason, who was a solid player in the slot. Personally, I liked his contributions, but in comes Eric Stokes to fill that role. I'll be real, I think Nate Hobbs is the better player overall. But hey, the Raiders have made some bold moves, and this one could turn out to be one of those gambles that pays off. Looking at the bigger picture, though, I still see a clear need for another starting outside cornerback, and that's where things get interesting for the Raiders in the upcoming draft. There are some potential targets out there who could really make an impact. The question is, who will the Raiders go after? Now, let's talk about the biggest rumor buzzing around the Raiders right now. Star running back Aston Genty from Boise State. People are speculating that the Raiders could take him with the number 6 pick. And honestly, I can see why. I'm a huge fan of Genty. If we picked him at 6, I wouldn't be upset at all. He's got the potential to be a generational talent at running back. But here's where I get a little skeptical. The hype around Genty to the Raiders has exploded out of nowhere, and it's spreading like wildfire. Even our general manager, John Spytek, brought it up in a radio interview. Now, if you know Spytek, he's not the type of guy to just leak information by accident. He's a strategic thinker, always keeping his cards close to his chest. So for him to casually bring up Genty's name, I have to wonder, could this be a smokescreen? It's possible the Raiders are trying to drive up Genty's value. Maybe another team, like the Chicago Bears or Dallas Cowboys, could get desperate and try to trade up to snag him. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to have Genty on the roster. But based on everything that's happened recently, I'm starting to think the Raiders won't pull the trigger on him at 6. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if the Raiders went defense in the first round. There's also the possibility we could go quarterback, and one name that keeps coming up is Will Johnson, the star quarterback out of Michigan. The Raiders have had private workouts with both Will Johnson and cornerback Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. With the release of Jack Jones, it wouldn't surprise me if we addressed cornerback early in the draft. But hey, there's still free agency to think about. One option that stands out is Asante Samuel Jr., the young cornerback from the LA Chargers. What makes Samuel intriguing is that he's still so young and has a lot of upside. Asante Samuel Jr. definitely stands out as a player with a lot of upside. He's still young, which means there's room for him to grow and develop. What's even better is that the Raiders could potentially land him on a short term prove it deal. That's actually been the theme of our free agency moves this offseason under John Spatech, targeting players who have potential but may need to prove themselves. In 2024, Samuel racked up 13 tackles and 2 pass breakups, but unfortunately, his season was cut short after just 4 games due to a shoulder injury. Even so, his youth and the upside he brings as a player make him an intriguing prospect. He's definitely someone the Raiders could consider adding to the roster. However, there's a flip side to this. The Raiders still have plenty of cap space. It's not like we're scraping the barrel for funds, so why haven't we pulled the trigger on a move like this yet? Maybe they're just not as interested in Samuel as we thought. After all, we've been careful with our spending. We freed up around $3.4 million in cap space by releasing Jack Jones, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're eager to dive into a big contract for a player like Samuel. That said, the release of Jack Jones definitely opens the door for the Raiders to potentially draft a cornerback early in the draft. I'm all for the idea of taking a shot at Will Johnson. Sure, there are concerns. He missed his pro day due to a hamstring injury, so we don't have a 40-yard dash time to go off of yet. But from what I've heard, he's recovering well and should be close to full health soon. But hey, don't quote me on that. I'm just going off what's out there. Now, while we don't have the full picture just yet, I wouldn't be surprised if Will Johnson holds a private workout soon, where he runs the 40-yard dash. That could give us some much-needed info to help make a clearer decision. But when you really look at a guy like Will Johnson, he stands out as a top-tier cornerback prospect. And what I love about him is the potential to become one of the best in the league. A lot of people are drawing comparisons between him and Patrick Surtain, and honestly, I get where they're coming from. Will Johnson is fantastic in man coverage, super smart on the field, and his ball skills are top-notch. He has that knack for making plays and forcing turnovers, something the Raiders could definitely use in the secondary. But at the end of the day, we'll have to wait and see what happens when draft night arrives. It's crazy to think, but the draft is just around the corner, only about 3 weeks away. Now, I want to hear from you, Raider Nation. What do you think about all this news? Do you think the Raiders are going to address the cornerback position early in this year's draft? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, if you're new to the channel and love Raider-related content, make sure to hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one.